Clean, damp legs smelling of lemons, Xander entered the dojo, a roofed area with training mats covering the floor. One side of the area was a concrete wall of what he suspected was the main house. The white stucco beneath was barely visible behind the impressive display of antique and modern combat weapons. Xander had been in many feline dojos, but never in a private one with such opulence. Hearing footsteps, he tore his attention away from the collection and turned to the door. Recognizing Simon's tread, he sat on the dojo's semi-soft workout mat in time to watch how Dame Esmeralda interacted with Sir Simon. So, instead of emailing or messaging me or any one of other means you had available to directly contact me, you decided the wisest move was to twist a few facts and involve Mumu. Dame Esmeralda snapped the moment Simon's paw passed the threshold. Does that about cover it? Though Simon appeared strong and fit, he also appeared to look for a hole to disappear into, as he slithered the rest of the way into the room. I did try to contact you, but you had disappeared. From the Kingston house? Simon nodded. Esmeralda looked heavenward, as she asked, did it ever occur to you that our Kingston house is the property of the British consulate? Simon blinked in confusion. Dame Esmeralda looked at him as if his IQ was lower than a bedbug's. Well, it is. And since you're human as the Canadian ambassador, whose accommodation is actually owned by the Canadian government, your situation would be the same as ours, if your human passed away. You had to leave because Sir Cochrane died? Well, duh, Duchess said. Why didn't any of you say something? Simon looked around for support. For a moment, his attention fastened outside, where statues of Bastet, a cat god, and Anubis, the dog's main god, stood side by side, overlooking the gardens and dojo. Dear boy, Duke said, in the eulogy at his memorial service, I said that we were lucky to have such a good human that he made certain of our needs, even after death by willing us this 5-acre parcel and enough funds to cover our needs for several years. Weren't you listening? Xander sighed. I am sorry for your loss. Your human sounds like he was exceptional. However, the how and why you moved from Kingston doesn't interest me as much as why you have an amazing dojo like this and why I saw so many puppies being trained here. Simple, Duchess said. This is a fulfillment of a lifetime dream, Esmeralda and Duke said in unison. Duke motioned for her to continue. When I initially adopted Sir Robert Cochrane, I didn't realize he already belonged to Duke. She gave her friend an apologetic look. So, when I initially moved in, there was a great deal of tension. Duke barked out a harsh laugh. That's her polite way of telling you I tried to murder her. Don't look so shocked, it's the truth. Fortunately, she wasn't particularly easy to kill. Why fortunately? Xander asked. Because if I had been successful killing her, she wouldn't have been alive to save my life. Xander clamped his jaws together for fear of saying the wrong thing, and thus not hearing the complete explanation. As usual, Duke is exaggerating, Esmeralda said. All I did was tell him some information. Actually, I only repeated a weather report. About a hurricane, Duke said, which was something I didn't understand, since we had only recently arrived here and it was the first hurricane I had encountered. Duke bowed his head to Esmeralda. The dogs on this island have a very primitive communication system. The midnight howl, Simon said. Duke nodded. But though there are not as many cats, most, if not all, seem to have access to global information. Sharky's eyes widened and she gave Xander a quick glance. He inclined his head and answered to her unspoken question. If Esmeralda had not warned me to get our human to change plans, we would have died, as so many others did. The amazing thing is that he actually listened to me. Then when he realized I wasn't just some dumb ball of fur, he began to treat me like an individual. Esmeralda smiled fondly at Duke. And from there, we have grown to become best friends and allies. It wasn't his fault for thinking as he originally did. He was raised to believe dogs were superior. I was raised to believe dogs were demons. But we had just arrived in Jamaica, so my support system was an ocean away. All I had was Duke and Robert. If they had died in the storm, I would have had serious problems, so it was quite self-serving to explain the approaching weather system to him. Duchess nodded. If you let them, they'll give you a blow-by-blow account of the storm and its aftermath. The Cliff Notes version is that they learned they would have a better life getting along together than living a Cold War, and once they threw away their prejudices and got to really know each other, they decided that the world would be a much better place if we all focused on what makes each of us good, instead of our differences. She looked at Simon. Simple has figured out a lot of this. Simon stared at her in surprise. Hello, Earth to Simple Simon, what are Tango and Peppy? He looked at her in confusion. Granted, they aren't dogs, but they aren't cats, either. So you, above most cats, should realize that species does not matter. Character matters. Deeds matter. Good intentions do not matter, particularly when the results are bad. And most importantly, words do not matter. Duchess glared at him, with the possible exception of lies. And Simple, you lied for no good reason. I had a perfectly good reason. What was it? Esmeralda had disappeared with a bunch of dogs. A bunch of dogs. We are her family. How would you like it if someone said that you had disappeared with a psycho bird and a bandit? Simon snorted. Don't lower yourself to insulting Tango and Peppy just to try and make a point. Duchess's chocolate eyes gleamed as she leaned close and said, I was quoting from a message you wrote. Jorge forwarded it to Aunt Esmeralda. Simon gasped. Duchess woofed. How does it feel when someone gossips and slanders like you did, then gets caught? Simon's attention dropped to his toes. Duke cleared his throat. I believe that has sorted out a great deal of the problem. Xander inclined his head. Indeed. This situation brings to mind something my friend, Holly, said, words are wind. Unless they're backed up by actions that match them, they are meaningless. When Holly said that, she was telling me how she gauged an individual's true character, and it seems to me this can easily cross species lines. I totally agree, Esmeralda said. And that is why we all felt it was so important to teach the young to see the individual instead of the species. Sir Cochrane said humans waged war about pigeonholes, Duchess added. We never want our species to degenerate to that level. Why would humans fight bird holes? Sharky asked. Pigeonholes are what Sir Cochrane called the way humans labeled things. For instance, he loved to harp about how humans murdered millions just because one group called their god by one name and another group called the same entity by another name. Duke woofed. Dear man would get quite worked up over the millions who had been killed in the name of a god who instructed man not to kill. So you are training puppies because of the way humans fight over religion, Sharky said. That is only one silly thing that they kill over. It seems humans war over color, nationality, resources, national borders, politics, just about anything where they can find a difference. Your views seem remarkably similar to the values I was raised with, Xander said. Do most dogs share this opinion? Hardly. Duke woofed. Which is why it is so important to teach the young to see the world as it is and to think for themselves, instead of blindly follow propaganda. Though he wasn't particularly comfortable agreeing with a canine, the dog was right. Xander nodded in agreement. I have met a few honorable dogs that would probably agree with you, but most seem to be intent upon world domination. Duchess laughed. Most dogs would say the same thing about cats. Agreed, Xander said. Do you think one small training center can have a major impact on worldview? An acorn, given the proper place and nutrients, can grow into a mighty oak. Esmeralda's emerald eyes sparkled. Of course, this takes time and patience. I will probably only see a tiny sprout in my lifetime, but at least, when I die, I will know that I planted the seed.